Alright, so I wanted to talk about purchasing a sight for a compound bow today. Um, Before we talk about purchasing a sight, because there's a few different types to choose from, I think you really need to figure out what your intentions are with whatever bow you're using, whether it's going to be hunting or target shooting or like say long distance shooting competitions. You're also going to want to figure out what kind of arrow you're going to be using. Whether you're going to be going for something that's like might be on the heavier end, that might have a little more power behind it, but you're going to see more intense drop, or you're going to have something a little sleeker and more flat shooting, and the drop isn't going to be as drastic. I will say the benefit of having an arrow that has a little more weight behind it, obviously that's going to have a little more power, if in some sort of hunting environment. But that also comes with some drawbacks. You can't harvest what you can't hit. And I will just say from personal experience, you might be really great at determining something that is at like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 yards, like at a range. But when you're in real life and you have a target, and you're not thinking clearly, you might want some forgiveness. So with that being said, a lot of bows come standard with a 3-pin sight. You can't really go wrong with them. You could set these for whatever you want, 10, 20, 30, 15, 25, 35, depending on your preferences. They're pretty lightweight a lot of times. And, one downside is that often you need a tool to make adjustments. You can forget your tool and then you're not able to make adjustments, and that can be a pain. But it's just your basic run-of-the-mill 3-pin sight. Chances are your compound bow may have come with one. Decent option, I would say. But yeah. You can often upgrade that to something a little crazier that might have 5 pins. These things go for pretty big money these days. The benefit of this one is if you forget your tool, there's no need to worry because the tool is actually built right in. I can make adjustments for each pin right up here, up and down. Got little lines here, you can make adjustments here. The downside to this sight is I personally think it's pretty big, complex, and heavy, and it catches on branches and tree limbs and all that, so take it or leave it. I personally can't figure out what to do with 5 pins because my shooting range is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 yards, and generally speaking for me, whatever I'm shooting for 20, that covers 10. 30, 40, 50, a lot of times, the drop isn't like too crazy with the way, I'm shooting my arrows. I'm shooting a pretty flat arrow right now. I get drop at 50 yards, but you know, it's not too intense. So a lot of times, you know, when I was using this, I've got the first 3 pins set, and then, you know, the other 2 I just got kind of chilling on the bottom doing nothing. Never had the opportunity to really sight those in because I never shoot, you know, super long distance. So maybe if you live in the western part of the country and, you know, the land is a lot more open out there, you know, that's probably rather practical. But where I am, you know, I'm happy with 10, 20, 30, you know, 30 yards. I can't even really see more than 30 yards in the woods, you know, it's so thick around here. Another really good option is these single pin sights. So this has a single pin. You got an adjuster on the back, so you actually have that one pin and then you set it to various yardage. You pre-mark the yardage on the tape. A lot of guys at the 3D archery tournaments use this. Like sights similar to this. Downside is before you take every shot, you gotta figure out your distance and make the adjustment. And it's kind of like all over the place, so you got to be really good at your numbers and hopefully make sure you have a like a scope to measure the distance before you take the shot. This would be really good, you know, just because it clears up your sight picture. You know, you could probably find a nice little spot, you know, average spot to leave it, you know, to hopefully get a nice average, you know, say like 25 yards, and might be like a little low at, you know, 15, dead on at 25, maybe low again at 35, you know, figure out, you know, the best average for you. And then this is good because if you are the type of guy that wants to do those like long range target contests, you know, around here in the summer, a lot of these organizations and groups, they have like a steel deer target contest where the majority of the deer is, you know, steel, and then the kill zone is like a normal soft target. So they start off at say 20 yards, you know, all the archers shoot. Anyone who misses, the arrow probably breaks on the steel, and then they move it back 10 yards, repeat, and then, you know, they keep moving it back until you're like 80, 90, 100 yards, and the last guy, you know, standing wins. You know, 3-pin sight, you're not gonna do well on something like that, you know, once you get beyond 50 yards. But you got one of these, and you have predetermined marks on the tape, and you could very easily win that type of contest with, you know, because you start off at 20, and so you move further back, just keep moving it up the line, and, you know, I'm sure you could probably get well past 100 yards, you know, with one of these. So this is a great option, personally. And last but not least, got just your regular old steel pin, which you probably see on the cheap bows at the How to Shoot Archery nights, wherever you might go. But these sights are great because they're like $10 on average, plus or minus. They're very easy to adjust. You know, it's just a matter of screwing these pins and moving it up and down, or, you know, screwing it in to go left or right. Once you find your spot, just get a little Loctite and lock it in, and you're good to go. You know, I am personally liking this, and I have it on my current hunting bow setup because it's very low profile, it's very light, and doesn't get in the way, and I have it set basically at like 25-30 yards, because at that point, you know, that's a good average. You know, if I put it right on the bullseye at say 30 yards, I'm going to be hitting basically right on. And then 35 yards, if I put it like on the bullseye, I'm still hitting the kill zone. At 20 yards, if I put it on the bullseye, I'm still hitting the kill zone. I'll just be a little high. 10 yards, I'm hitting the bullseye. 40, now I have to start raising it a little. And I'll hit the bullseye if I put the pin towards the top of the kill zone. And then 50 yards, now I'm holding it, kind of above the target just a little, but I mean it's kind of landing where I want it. So it's a great option for $10. And currently, this is what I have. This is my primary compound bow, despite all the ones you just saw. This is my primary, and this is what I'm shooting, and I am shooting a very flat arrow. So again, I would say when you're getting your sight for your bow, the first thing you want to do is get an arrow properly tuned to your bow. This one is 28 inches, it's 340 spine, and I'm using 100 grain arrowheads, and I'm using basically the blazer style fletching. These actually shoot very fast and very flat, so really I'm not dealing with a whole lot of drop within 40-50 yards. Beyond 50 yards, it's falling right to the ground, but you just want to make sure that you are figuring out what you're going to be shooting for arrows. And if you're shooting a heavier arrow, you'll or like bigger vein, the fletching, the feathers, those tend to create more drag. So if you have more drag on your arrow, definitely at least a 3-pin sight is usually probably the way to go. But if you're shooting pretty flat, this is a great option. So again, always figure out what arrows you're going to be shooting, and check the spine charts. That's super important, because if you're not shooting the correct arrow, then it doesn't matter what sight you're using. Say last season, I really was not properly spined, and I had good accuracy 10 to 20 yards, and 30 yards I was struggling. Even at 63 pounds, the accuracy of the arrow itself was off. So no amount of money put into a sight or adjustments were helping, because no matter what, every time just the grouping at 30 yards was awful, because these feathers were creating so much drag, and the arrow itself was actually also too long, I had come to find out. So it just was not a good situation. So check the arrow spine charts. If you don't have one, I've said this before, it's on my Patreon. I'm going to drop a link in the description. And that is it. If you have any questions, just leave a comment and I will try to get back to you.